doing for tomorrow anyway.
All right, that sounds good.
We are live according to the little thing on the screen. So it's Jim, it's Matt. And, in some regards, Matt, the fact that we didn't have an open somehow is fitting as we talk about yesterday's Super Bowl, which, man, it was rough. It was two good defenses, um, but it was a wild game. Um, I know that Seattle fans have been waiting since 2015 when the Seahawks lost to the Patriots in that game, which might have had one of the most infamous plays in history. That was that goal line interception that handed New England that 28-24 win, gave them their fourth Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
But, you know, 2026, we fast forward and gosh, the Patriots arrived at Levi Stadium. It's a new era, right? They got a 23-year-old quarterback, Drake May, who's a runner-up to the MVP award winner situation. They have Mike Grable as their new head coach. No Tom Brady, no Belichick, but the expectations were still high, sky high. But man, tough day yesterday if you were a New England fan.
Yeah, and the caveat that people are going to throw on it, and I think it's a semi-fair caveat to put on this game, is the fact that New England was very ahead of schedule in terms of what they were
Mm-hmm.
doing and where they got to. I think that's fair, and I think you can also admit that when you watch that football game, like it felt like I was watching the Cleveland Browns play football again. Because
Mm-hmm.
like you really wanted, like it was kind of exciting to watch New England play defense, but you knew
Mm-hmm.
the second that the ball got back to the offense, it didn't really matter what that defense did
Mm-hmm.
because of just how bad that offense was. Um, you know, it's something that they made note of coming into in the pregame, headed into the game, that Jared Wilson and Will Campbell were set to make history as the first pair of rookies to share a side of a line, start side by side each other in
Mm-hmm.
a Super Bowl. They're lucky that's the only history they made in that game because they came very lucky. I mean, they gave up 6 sacks. I'm pretty sure 5 of them came from that left side of the offensive line.
Yeah, the blind side.
Yeah, they're going to have to do some reevaluating. I know that Will Campbell had a torn MCL. I know he's a rookie. I know this is a big stage. It does not matter. Him and Jared Wilson both got physically manhandled at the point of attack, time in, time out, regardless of what happened. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like, I think we can get in depth and pick apart, different things, and this played a factor and that played a factor. And there's stuff that definitely played large roles.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest role that was played in that game was either Seattle's ability to rush the passer off that side or New England's inability to be able to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, look, Drake May had 17 quarterback hurries, and what was it, 7 sacks? You said
It was 6. It was
6. That one sack didn't count as a sack; it was
yep,
interception. Okay, fine.
yep,
Um, I don't know. I thought that the whole thing with Drake May, we said they can't speed up the clock on him, right?
hmm
Well, if if you're if your blind side of your line is not blocking for you, that clock is going at 100 miles an hour, and so
yeah,
I'm not sure you could lay that all on Drake May.
yeah.
Um,
Seattle was able to create, and this, I don't know if this is an original term, but the way I described it was a lasting pressure. Even when they weren't there, it felt like they were there coming off that blind side. And you watch Drake May's process get sped up just exponentially. Like there are throws that you can go back, you can look at and say, he makes those a lot of the times, and he didn't make it because of that defensive line and their ability to generate the pressure, whether they were there or not. I think it was the coverage bust on the back end of Austin Hooper, who was just wide open. And Drake May had the time, he had the ability to make the throw, but he just missed it. Like there
mhm.
was an en route that he missed, and all of it was just little stuff that was just kind of off from what he normally does. And I think that's mainly to do with the looming threat of the pressure.
I think what we saw too was two different offensive coordinators' ideas of what to do. Right. Um, One of the things I wasn't surprised at all. What they did with that Sam Darnold is they literally asked him not to, in other words, don't do anything that's going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And basically, we'll take the field goals. We came. They didn't force it. There were a couple times, he was throwing into tight windows, but for the most part, they didn't ask him to do anything more than what he had to do. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, we talked about this on Friday. If they could get their running game going, that would be, something that they would help them out tremendously, and they did.
Yeah.
Um, they got enough of the running game to do it.
Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, New England didn't, and so they ended up throwing the ball 40 plus times. Um, you throw the ball 40 plus times against that defense, you're not gonna. That's not a winning proposition.
Yeah. They say the best way to slow down a really good pass rush is to be able to run the football.
Hmm.
That's obviously something that New England was not able to do in any kind of capacity. Their leading rusher was Drake May. And Seattle's leading rusher, you go to the other side, it's Kenneth Walker. He's got 130 yards and he wins Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
That's one of your. I said there's things that you're going to be able to attribute
Mhm.
things to. That's one of them right there. Uh, that that run game that Seattle had versus the one that New England could not find.
Hmm.
I think that's really the difference in the game on that side of the ball as well, because
Yeah.
it all stems back to that pressure that they were able to create.
What Sam Darnold in his entire career was criticized for, which is basically his control and discipline, was exactly what won him the Super Bowl yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, and they talked about his ability to, or not ability, but he's been apt to turn the football over throughout a lot of the regular season. I
Hmm.
think he led the NFL in turnovers this past season, and he just didn't do it. Like that's really what it came down to. They were not going to have Sam Darnold lose them that football game,
Hmm.
and that was the exact right philosophy to have for that as well,
Hmm.
because it like New England was not going to score that many points.
Hmm.
You felt when they started getting field goals. I think Chris Collinsworth made a gesture to such a thing. He said, if
Hmm.
you get to about 15 on field goals, then they're going to start feeling pressure. And they got to 15 on field goals. And after they did that, then Sam Darnold was able to pop the lid off and finally get a touchdown.
Yeah, when Jason Myers put him ahead 9-0 at halftime, I didn't think there was any way they were coming back. I
Yeah.
mean, they showed nothing in the first. Did they? I'm pretty sure it didn't happen until the second half. They didn't cross the 50-yard line in the first half.
No, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. It was just complete dominance from start to end from Seattle. And I struggle because I don't really know what else Josh McDaniels could have done. I think is the hardest, like the thing that I can't really fully wrap my head around is they were in such control that I really don't know what options Josh McDaniels had left in his bag of tricks there. Maybe getting some more +1 quarterback runs, maybe some more quick stuff, try to get Drake May in a little more of a rhythm, but none of that seemed to happen either.
Well, even they tried tempo a couple of times, and that didn't work.
No.
It's hard, and you don't want to blame one or two or three guys for losing because that's not fair. But at the end of the day, the fact that they could not protect him on the blind side just it screwed Drake May's head up. I
Yeah.
mean, it just made him. Well, look, we saw him. We saw the arm talent. We saw, he could throw the ball deep. He could throw the ball into tight windows. He could throw the ball against pressure. He could do all that. Okay, we've seen that. But yesterday, everything that all the demons that came out, they were talking about before the game, about whether Darnold. Yeah, they were talking more about Sam Darnold than they were about Drake May, about seeing ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Drake May saw ghosts all day long yesterday.
Yeah. And, I go back and you look at the first couple of drives, and the Super Bowl really started in a way that you thought it was going to go more potentially towards the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those windows that Sam Darnold was throwing into, it's like, man, like these guys are taking gambles going after these balls. Like he's having to fit them into some tight windows. They're probably going to force one here in a minute. And that just didn't happen for New England. That was their way to victory, is their defense had to be able to turn Sam Darnold over. And I think for as much as New England knew that, Seattle also knew that as well. And so they did everything they could to guard him. And it helps when you have a running back that's averaging like 7 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm. Well, coming out of the locker room in second half, the Seahawks, and I think I credit this, outstanding job by Kubiak. I mean, they didn't change anything. They didn't abandon the run. They didn't try to force the ball deep. They didn't try to chase points. They just decided, you know what? We're going to make this game as short as possible. And basically, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Darnold was in rhythm the whole second half. He would hit a couple of underneath routes. I mean, they were everything that they ran was safety. Okay. It was all safe plays. They didn't run any plays that were, in any way, shape, or form that could be considered dangerous. They played. I mean, they threw a couple of passes that could have, ended up the wrong way. And look, Garcia, the D back for the Patriots. My God, if it wasn't for him, they would have been behind 28-0 in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, Christian Gonzalez does deserve a lot of credit for what he did. And, I think if New England had won that game, he might have had a legitimate bid for the MVP there. Just the way he was playing on that back end, he saved them from a lot of scores. You think about that ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba, that's one that they very easily could have scored on had that been completed. But he did a really good job on the back end. But again, we can give a lot of credit to New England's defense. It deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what they did yesterday. If they weren't getting turnovers, New England was not winning that football game.
Well, think about it. New England stop Seattle for 9 points. They get to the red zone. They can't score a touchdown. They just kick field goals. You're down 9-0, and you're sitting there going, and as I said before, 9-0. I'm thinking, man, there's no way the Patriots coming back on this. And you would think, you can't blame the Patriots defense. I mean, my God, they couldn't have played any harder or any better.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they were able to continue pulling themselves off the mat, because it's incredibly difficult as a defense when you're getting stop after stop and your offense is just giving you nothing on the backside of it. So it's very hard mentally to keep going back out there, honestly, just kind of feeling like your efforts are in vain. It's not going to matter what you're doing out there, but they continue to do it. And even when Seattle was able to move the ball, they stalled pretty much all of their drives and held them to 3. I mean, and under different offensive circumstances for New England, their defense would be feeling fantastic. They would be thinking like, hey, we're keeping ourselves in the game. And that was probably the mentality they had to approach it with there for a while, because that's what was happening. They were keeping them in the game, but ultimately keeping them in the game was not enough. They would have had to have won them the game.
And I think that I listened to WEEI, and if you are familiar with Boston radio folks, they're usually pretty harsh. And today they came out that they were cool about the whole thing. They said, look, we came, Drake May played as well as we could have expected under the circumstances. And I think that early in the pregame show, not early, but in the pregame show, Kyle Shanahan, when they were picking teams, who was going to win, and he said, "Look, I don't see any way that New England is going to be able to stop the defense, because I can tell you right now, we had Matthew Stafford and we couldn't make him work." So meaning Seattle, defeated the 2 MVPs, in the league, the MVP in Stafford and the guy who came in second in their last 2 games. So I think Shanahan had it right. There were, I think, 2 he and somebody else, I forget, might have been Dungy that picked Seattle to win. The other 2 guys picked the Patriots. And again, you started the show off with where we all believe it to be, and that is that, look, Drake May and the Patriots are a year ahead of time.
Yeah.
They'll go back. They're going to have to fix that offensive line. my guess is they're going to swap guys around. And which one was the guy that was hurt? I'm sorry, I forgot the offensive line.
I know Will Campbell has a torn MCL.
Yeah, I think they're going to move Campbell to guard.
I would be surprised.
He cannot play tackle.
No, he cannot. That is not his place.
Mm-hmm.
Not his place in the NFL. And that was a concern coming in. I think New England was aware that he could potentially have some problems in terms of his wingspan playing tackle at the NFL level.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just hard because of the stage that they were on and how apparent, like how plain and apparent it was that was the primary issue for their offense.
Right. And we don't want to blame this on any one or two or three guys. It was a team effort on both sides. Seattle played the team. Frankly, to me, I thought the kicker should have won the MVP award because he scored all the points.
Yeah.
But I see that was only. By the way, that was the giving the award to the running back. That's only the third time since 1994 that there's been a running back that's gotten the MVP award.
I was a bit confused because it seemed as the game was winding down there in the fourth quarter, Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth were having a discussion regarding the Super Bowl MVP when Kenneth Walker broke off that touchdown run that inevitably got called back for the hold. And they're like, man, that could have been a Super Bowl MVP changing run. I was very curious why they thought Sam Darnold was ever going to win the Super Bowl MVP, given the other performances they had out there on the field for Seattle.
Well, I mean, I don't think you could have given it to Darnold. Okay. I mean, were you giving it to him for not screwing up?
Yeah. And it was something that I
legit, but I mean,
yeah.
But he okay, fine. He didn't make mistakes, but then again, game management, I get it. But hell, the kid that kicked the field goals and put what, he had a record amount of field goals plus he had the 2 extra points.
Yeah, and so he had
you don't have any points. Jason Myers.
He scored the most points in NFL history in a season this year.
Right.
Yeah, I think Myers would have been a very good candidate. I think it would have been one of Myers or Kenneth Walker, either that or you could just give it to the defense as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this, just the right way to put it. It's like I really like Sam Darnold, and I'm very happy for him and the place that he got to. And it is a great story, and absolutely nothing is going to change that. But we also don't need to turn that Super Bowl performance into something it wasn't, which was it was average. That's what that performance was. It wasn't a great performance. I'm not even sure I'd call it probably a good performance, I guess. But I think people have taken it, and because what Sam Darnold's story is and like who he is, because he seems like a nice, likable guy and he does have a great story, it seems like we're confusing a good story with a good performance.
Right. That's a very good way of putting it, because they're guys who won Super Bowls that come to mind. Trent Dilfer, when he won the Super Bowl for the Ravens. Joe Flacco, when he won the Super Bowl for the Ravens. Brad Johnson, when he won the Super Bowl for Tampa Bay. These were not brilliant quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They're not Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They're guys who were asked to do something because the defenses they played, on the teams that they played were known for their defenses, not for the offensive. Hell, going all the way back to the '85 Bears. I mean, that whole situation was a deal where the defense won the game, and the offense, scored just enough points to get them past the other side. I think yesterday, and again, I agree with you. I think that it's a nice story that Sam Darnold won a national, a World Series, a Super Bowl ring. Okay. And that he had 2 consecutive back-to-back 14-win seasons. All of that, good storylines. But were they worth his being given the championship honors of being the most valuable player in the Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. As I said, I think that he he got this. He won because he didn't make mistakes, and that's good, but that's not necessarily worthy of winning the MVP award for.
Yeah, yeah, he did his job, and
Yeah.
that deserves a lot of
Mhm.
credit because there is like to be able to change his game because that's what he had to do. He had to change his game for
Mhm.
this game because
Right.
you talked about it earlier. He was the leading turnover guy in the NFL this year. Like
Mhm.
he took risks, he gambled. There's a reason that Jason Myers kicked a lot of field goals because they didn't
Mhm.
always make it to the end zone. Um, but he did his job. Like that was his role. And that's great. That's perfect. That's exactly what they signed him to do. Like
Mhm.
they talked about Mike McDaniel and his philosophy in Seattle.
Mhm.
And that was what Sam Darnold was brought there to do. He's brought there to be a part of that philosophy, and he played his role perfectly last night.
Mhm. And that's not taking anything away from him.
No,
He deserved what he won the game by playing by playing to the script that it was written. Okay, and that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as I said, could have given it to. Uh, I mean, if it were me, and it's not, but if I had to vote, I would have voted it and just given the MVP award to the Seattle defense in total.
yeah, I honestly, as I was watching him run it back, I really thought Nwosu might have had a legitimate case at being
Hmm.
the Super Bowl MVP for that pick and that return.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, I just because of I think in my mind I always had it for Kenneth Walker just
Hmm.
because I think that their entire offense, like it would have felt a lot more like a good old fashioned Pittsburgh Steelers versus Cleveland Browns snow football game
Right.
had Seattle not had Kenneth Walker on their sideline.
Right.
I really do believe that. I don't think Sam Darnold would have found a rhythm. Um, Obviously, Drake May didn't find a rhythm either. But I think we would have been in for a nice field goal fest if they hadn't had Kenneth Walker
Right.
on the sideline. And I really think that's the only
You're right. You're right. And he did get over 100 yards.
yeah. And I really think that's the only reason why Jason Myers didn't win that Super Bowl MVP is because if I go back and watch it, if they don't have Kenneth Walker, where are they?
He
And
got them to the red zone 3 times.
yeah, and the answer of where are they if they don't have Kenneth Walker is I'm going to assume on the same side of the 50 as the New England Patriots were a lot of that first half.
It might have been a 12-9 game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would have been nasty,
Mhm.
but luckily they did have Kenneth Walker, so we were spared that portion of it.
Right. Right. By the way, before we get out on and start talking a little bit about baseball, um, any commercials that hit you that you thought was funny?
I wasn't not necessarily on the light note. I'm not sure how I feel about the Ring doorbells starting to do this group like facial
Oh,
recognition
with the
thing.
dog.
Yeah, it's mildly unsettling. I couldn't tell you the company, but I thought it was funny that somebody bought an ad spot and just did karaoke for the oh god, it was Backstreet Boys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I For some reason I was having a hard time remembering if it was the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, but
Yeah.
I
No,
knew it was one of the two of them. I like
neither one of my favorite groups, but that's okay. To each their own.
yeah, I thought that was funny.
I'll tell you, I was so totally impressed by Bad Bunny's halftime show. Not necessarily because I understood what was going on from a song standpoint. It's just it's no comment on his talents. Obviously, he is a worldwide superstar, but the logistics of getting all that stuff on and off the field for a halftime presentation just was
Yeah.
absolutely stunning to me.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think this is maybe one of the first years that I've remembered people caring this much about what the halftime show was, but it, I couldn't couldn't have made out specific words. I've taken some Spanish. I'm not great at it, but I know a little bit. So I know a couple words, but
Yeah.
I couldn't have told you what he was saying in in sequence. So, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, all of the stuff they had on the field. I mean, they had like an entire garden on the field and got it off, in 7 minutes.
Yeah, I props to them because they roll that stuff out for these
Hmm.
halftime shows. I don't know how they do it.
It is absolutely, and they can't practice. This is something I'll give you a little inside football here, because I've done a couple of post game. I'm sorry, halftime shows. The, you can't practice that on the stadium floor, okay?
Hmm.
Because nobody touches that ground. A week before this, they lay down new turf a week before the game, okay? And that turf takes about 4 days to settle in. So there's no way you're practicing on that. So they would have to have practiced somewhere. And normally they practice without obviously the star.
Yeah,
So all of that would have been, you probably at Stanford, probably at Cal or somebody place like that where the stadium is big enough to get all the stuff in and out in a reasonably short period of time. And they just keep practicing because, again, remember, there's dancers, there's all kinds of people that come in there that are not part of the crowd. So you have to get them in. You've got to get the physical, stages in and out. And I thought the way they orchestrated it was amazing. I thought they did a really nice job at Levi Stadium.
yeah, they did. I think that's think back to Super Bowl 50. I think Coldplay did a really good job with their halftime show. I think
Yeah,
two on halftime shows in Santa Clara.
yeah. I think Green Day did a nice job on the pregame show.
Yeah,
So it was, there were a little bit of something for everybody. And then we had they led right into the Olympics, and I mean, this is an NBC year. I mean, they got the NBA All Star Game coming up. This weekend. It will certainly not get a record, uh, you know, numbers like the Super Bowl, but it's an absolute amazing group of riches for NBC. They're getting the Olympics, the Super Bowl, and the NBA All Star weekend. So not a bad weekend for not bad 2 weeks for NBC.
yeah. I think NBC is. I think they got the good end of the draw in terms of the NBA All Star Game as well, because I think they're going to have more success with this USA versus World
Yeah,
setup than they have in recent years.
yeah. Well, we'll see. I hope that I, I I hope that they. I haven't looked at it. Well, we will as we get closer back to it, but I don't know if Charles and the boys will be there for the uh, the skills night. But this is so the dunks and all the other stuff. They're
Hmm.
always hilarious whenever they do it, and I would hope that they would bring them back if they can. Of course, that's ESPN, so we'll have to figure out if they can get them in there or not. But we'll see. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a wild situation, and of course, we hope that she gets better soon. And that's Lindsey Vaughn broke her leg in a horrific accident on the hill. Um, I'll be honest. I mean, I had this conversation. I have a number of doctors in my family. We had a conversation the other night about whether or not truly Lindsey Vaughn could have actually um, um, competed, given the what she was supposedly, what was it, an MCL tear, right?
it was an ACL tear. It was
ACL, right?
a 100% rupture of her ACL, and those are words coming from her mouth.
That's impossible. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just saying it. Um, so look, I certainly did not wish her any ill will or anything, any terrible situation. but I was stunned that she was back there on the hill, and 13 seconds into the run, she had um, a terrible accident. We wish, as I said before, we wish her well, gets well soon, and there's been a lot of entertaining stuff going on at the Olympics, uh, and now things are going to start heating up with the hockey and with some of these other, the bobsled and some of the things that I particularly enjoy. So we'll see more and more of that. We're gonna switch gears here for just a couple minutes. Good day if you're an Atlanta Braves fan. Guess what? They're in spring training already.
Wow.
So no, I'm sorry, tomorrow.
Oh,
The
okay.
10th. The 10th.
I knew pitchers and catchers reported this week. I didn't realize they were there already.
Diamondbacks the 10th, Cubs the 11th, White Sox, we're talking to Cactus League now. White Sox the 10th, Reds the 11th, Guardians the 12th, Rockies the 12th, Royals the 11th, Angels the 11th, Dodgers on the 13th. They might as well. Dodgers might as well show up in March. So
Yeah.
they don't really need that much. All right, Brewers the 12th, Athletics the 11th, Padres the 11th, Giants the 10th, Mariners the 12th, and Rangers on the 10th. Let's go to the Grapefruit League. Your hot Atlanta Braves. That's the 10th of February. By the way, this is what I'm giving you are the pitchers and catchers.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's about 4 or 5 days later. Everybody else shows up.
Yep.
The Orioles on the 11th, the Red Sox tomorrow, the Tigers on the 11th, Astros the 11th, Marlins on the 11th, Twins on the 12th, Mets on the 11th, Yankees on the 12th, Phillies on the 11th, Buccos on the 11th. Hang on. I got to scroll up. Cardinals 12th, Rays 12th, Blue Jays on the 11th, and the Nationals on the 11th. The pitchers and catchers will all be there. Field players, basically, we're talking about anywhere from the 13th, to the 17th. The first spring training game will be on Friday, February 20th. And everybody else gets underway. All 30 clubs will have at least one spring training game on February the 21st. And the first one, opening day matchups, Arizona Diamondbacks, Colorado Rockies. That's your first game of the spring training exhibition season. So there you go, folks. By the way, we know that the the World Baseball Classic gets underway March 4th through 17th. The first game is going to take place on March 5th. It's at the Tokyo Dome. Chinese Taipei takes on Australia, and that one is going to be, it's actually being played on March 4th, but we'll see it on March 5th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. The championship game will be held in Miami on the 17th at 8 p.m. at Lone Depot Park.
Yeah. Quick one, because I think there's a lot of people that are, I think upset's probably like disappointed or upset. I think people really wanted Mike Trout to round out the Team USA roster. I don't think they were willing to insure him in terms of allowing him to play for Team USA in the WBC. So that I know people are disappointed by the fact that Mike Trout will not be a part of the Team USA.
Yeah, I think part of it has to do with a deal in his contract having to do with, he's coming off an injury. And
Yeah.
I don't think they wanted him to potentially exacerbate that injury before they even start the season.
Yeah, and in terms of the Angels and protecting their product and what they're going to put on the field, that's perfectly fine and understandable. So Aroldis Chapman wasn't eligible to get insurance either, but I'm sure the Red Sox didn't want their 44-year-old closer putting some extra miles on the tires.
No. Not if they don't have to.
Yep. So there are teams that will make those judgment calls on some of these guys and whether or not they have contract stipulations that will or won't allow them to play in this game.
Yeah, and a lot of times it'll come down to, you know, do we? I mean, a lot. Some of these teams are going to be with as many players off the one roster. You could have 5 or 6 players off one roster.
Yeah.
So your spring training without them, right? And they don't get back until March. So you basically they're coming back spring training wise for they played, okay, no question they played, but they didn't play with the teams that they're going to be playing with during the season. So as much as we like the World Baseball Classic, and it really is good, it's good for baseball, it's good for good for the players and all that. It does take your players away from you when at a time when in some cases some of these guys are coming onto new rosters with new teams, and they need some time just to, if nothing else, to get to know who who they're playing on the same team with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can be an issue if you have new additions, for sure.
Mhm.
I think everybody tends to or likes to look at the World Baseball Classic as the plus as opposed to the negatives, but the negatives
Mhm.
are very much there when it comes to this in terms of your team and your roster concerned about your season as opposed to this what is it just at its core an exhibition.
Yeah, I mean it's basically the World Baseball Classic came about because the International Olympic Committee and Major League Baseball could not come up with a deal that made sense for them. It doesn't make sense to stop Major League Baseball in the middle of the summer to send teams to the Olympics.
No,
And
no,
so
absolutely does not.
that argument went on and went on. Then Bud Selig sat down and decided, maybe what we should do is before the season starts, have a tournament. And so that's how the genesis, what the genesis was. Uh, the the real debate was, do you have the tournament after the season? Basically because you're playing these games in domes or warm cities anywhere, so it doesn't matter. Um, should you have it after the season? Uh,
Yeah.
and there was thought that maybe they'd do it during the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas or something like that. But then thought, well, we're up against the national, the NFL and college football and all that other sort of stuff. So maybe we should do it in spring. And so they decided on the spring. But as I said, if you talk to general managers, they're not crazy about it, but they do understand how important this is to a lot of the Latin American players, a lot of the Asian players. I mean, this is playing for your country in something like this is as close in baseball as you're going to get to the World Cup.
Yeah.
So you don't want you don't want to send a team out there that doesn't have stars on it.
No, absolutely not. And that's like the Dominican does a fantastic
Oh
job
my
at that.
God, yeah.
They get their absolute best out there
Mhm.
pretty much every single year.
Japan.
Venezuela's doing a very good job with it, getting their very best
Mhm.
out there every single year as well. So they've done a really good job in building these rosters and making what is a really competitive baseball tournament
Mhm.
where you feel a lot more of the nationality that you get out of
Mhm.
the Olympics in baseball. And that's the only time that you get it. This is the only time you get it in baseball, really, unless you go down to South America for the summer
Mhm.
league games
Right.
that these guys play in.
Well, and we
When it
just
was
talked
born.
about this is huge for the Asian teams. I mean,
Mhm.
these are we're getting more and more and more Asian players, and it's been a huge thing for the Australians. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, the Aussies could care less about baseball. Now, now there's a good, solid following of baseball in Australia.
Yeah,
Uh,
and those the Asian Americans or the teams of Asian descent, like
mhm,
Japan won it last time.
right.
2 years ago, that Japan was the winner. They had Shohei Ohtani close it out against Mike Trout.
Right.
Great moment. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's been I feel like there's just maybe been a little bit more emphasis and attention on the Asian players recently.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, and we're getting more and more Asian players in the United States.
Hmm.
And, and I do believe if you watch the clubs from the Caribbean and the South American clubs, I mean, it's just watching the Dominican play. Oh my God, it's hilarious to watch. I mean, I mean that from a fan standpoint because they just love to put on a show.
Hmm. Yeah.
You can tell it means something serious to each and every one of them,
Yeah, it really does.
and that's a
That's
good thing for baseball.
Yeah, like, and people are like, there are players that are not playing on some of those teams that are upset. I know Francisco Lindor's upset. Like,
Yeah,
his wife has made public comment as to the fact that he would like to play in this game. However, he is not being allowed to.
right. Well, you know, make the playoffs, and uh, Jeff and the boys in the Mets might buy a little, might be a little bit more forgiving. Um,
Yeah,
Soto's not playing either, so
yeah, and I think New York's well within that. Like, based off what they were last year,
mhm.
I think New York's well within their rights to be like, hey guys, we got something bigger that we're trying to work on here. We
Well,
need y'all here.
well, yeah. I mean, they got Bichette. I mean, they got a bunch of players who, if they're going to make a run, they better know who they are.
Yes.
And while it would be great to have these players in the World Baseball Classic, I can totally understand where, the Mets are coming from when they said, "Look, we've invested, over $1 billion in these guys, and we definitely would like to not see them lose out to the Reds again."
Yeah, absolutely. That's got to be because the way that season ended is the season ended really when the Reds came in there
Hmm.
and kind of just took back control of that wild card spot.
Hmm. Yeah, on the last day of the season.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, before we get out of here, we got to get the latest Red Sox news.
Oh yes. So the Red Sox completed a trade today. They sent away Kyle Harrison, David Sandlin, and David Hamilton to the Brewers in exchange for Caleb Durbin, a compensatory B league pick, B level pick, I
Right.
think is the way, and two other minor league infielders.
Okay.
So I'm gonna break this down in two different settings because there's something that I'm happy about and there's something that I'm upset about.
Okay.
What I'm happy about is I'm happy to see the way that the Red Sox allocated their farm system and where they had depth. They had a lot of depth in their outfield. They didn't move off of that depth in the outfield, and it seemed to be a questionable scenario, but they did move off of all their pitching depth. They had a ton of pitching depth in the AAA system that are these valuable pieces that in all likelihood we're not going to be seeing the major league roster anytime soon. They may have been out of minor league options, stuff like this. I think they did a really good job of moving some of the more mid-level pieces and a lot of that pitching depth that wasn't really ever going to be used for players that this year are going to be helpful. They swapped Johnston Garcia earlier in the offseason for Johan Oviedo. Garcia was a highly touted outfielder, but the Red Sox already had an outfield logjam. That was one of the trades that they made from that outfield logjam, except it was just not one of the big names that you were maybe expecting. But they went out and
Mhm.
they got a high upside arm in Johan Oviedo. They made the deal with some of their pitching depth for Sonny Gray, another guy that is going to start for the Red Sox. Did the same thing with Wilson Contreras. Now they've done it with Durbin as well. I like what they've done, but on the backside of it, I now sit back and I look at that Rafael Devers trade from last offseason and go, what do we have left? Like, of that initial deal for Rafael Devers, that what San Francisco sent back, of the pieces they sent back, the
Mhm.
only one still on the Red Sox is Jose Bayo, who's a single A pitcher right now.
Mhm.
Um, that's it's a disappointing return when you just look at it and say that we traded our best player to make room for Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman's now on the Cubs. We
Mm-hmm.
need power at third base. That's what he gave us. But now we're kind of, you know, picking the pieces apart because you guys didn't handle something very well last offseason.
Mm-hmm.
You let it progress into something larger than it was, and now we're in this spot. But on the flip side of it, I also kind of like the moves they made. I like the way they filled in their offense. I like Caleb Durbin a lot as a prospect. He puts together a lot of good at bats. He was pretty good last year. It's another guy that they made a trade for. It's similar to the Johan Oviedo trade, and
Mm-hmm.
where they signed a guy or they went out and traded for a guy that they just think has breakout potential. Like they see the upside in this guy, and that's why they're paying the price for him. And it does give you a more complete feel to that infield because now you know Marcelo Meyer and Caleb Durbin are most likely going to one of them's going to slot in at second, the other one's going to slot in at third. They'll probably be your primary defenders at those positions,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be able to platoon those guys with Romy Gonzalez and Nate Eaton sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So I like what they've done. They've found some stability. I think they've gotten better in the trades that they've made. I just wonder how much better when they needed a legitimate power threat through the middle of that lineup. Because if I get to the end of August and the Red Sox leading home run guy has like 23 home runs, I'm going to lose my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had Kyle Schwarber out there. You had Pete Alonso out there. You had Rafael Devers on the team last year. Alex Bregman was out there to go sign. And he may not have had the same power, but he was available. Eugenio Suarez was there.
Pete Alonso was there.
Yeah. They could have made a deal or signing for a little bit of a bigger bat, but they didn't really want to pull the trigger on anything massive this offseason, apparently, other than signing Ranger Suarez.
One of the things, and I'm not surprised, but one of the things that was going on, the Padres were shopping Machado, and they were willing on the trade side to take lesser than if the team that that got Manny was willing to eat a lot of his contract. And I know that he signed, it was a 12 or 13 year $300 million contract. Was he about fifth? He's about 5 years in that deal, I think.
I think it's more than that.
Might be longer than 5.
Yeah, I think so.
He and Bryce signed the same. That was 2019, so that'd be 7 years, I guess.
Yeah,
So he's 7 years in on a 10-year deal. I don't know how much deferred money was in that deal, but evidently nobody wanted to pull the trigger on Manny.
And that's understandable. That's a really big contract they're trying to get out from under. When you look at what San Diego did when they signed their free agents and their core of players, is they really overpaid for them. I love Xander Bogaerts and I love Manny Machado, and Manny Machado has been fantastic for San Diego. Do not get me wrong about that, but he still has ridiculous money attached to that contract. Xander Bogaerts definitely has ridiculous money attached to his contract relative to his production. So they made some risky plays when the Padres were just for some reason burning through their every ounce of cash they had in their pockets. But now they're kind of on the back end of those deals and in a little bit of financial trouble. And now those deals are giving them some issues.
Well, what happened there was they made that deal. They made those big signings. As a result, they could thank the Dodgers for that. Okay. Because what happened was when the Dodgers signed that ridiculous TV contract with Spectrum, Fox freaked. So they took the money that they were going to pay the Dodgers. They took half of it and dumped it into the Angels. They went down to San Diego. They didn't have a network in San Diego. That was Channel 4 San Diego. That had been Cox for years. They went down there and basically just blew them off the face of the earth and gave the Padres I think it was a 10 or 20 year. It was about, I want to say it's a 10 to 15. I'll just say that to be safe. $3 billion deal. Which all of this is the tumbling of what really ended up causing these regional sports networks to just blow up because everybody went crazy when the Dodgers signed that deal. What are we going to do? Get all that money? Blah 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 blah. So they, suddenly they got cash rich, and they made a ton of signings. Signings they would never have been able to sign under the normal circumstances. And now, because of the demise of those RSNs and the money that isn't there, they're saddled with those contracts. And so it doesn't surprise me that they're trying to get out from under it. It doesn't surprise me that nobody was, willing to pull the trigger on it because of the same situation. Everybody's in that same boat, and nobody of the big teams, I mean, none of the major teams need Manny Machado. Would it be nice to have him? Sure. But are you going to take on that contract? That's up to, everybody's got a budget. And so I just think that that contract is not going to get any easier to move. And so I think Manny's going to stay in San Diego. Not a bad thing for San Diego fans. Not a bad thing for him.
No, not at all. And if I'm Manny Machado at that point in my career, I'm not sure I'd really want to be dealt, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who you're dealing with.
Yeah, well, that is true. Like, I think Arenado is probably okay getting dealt since he got dealt to a contender. Like that's where, when they reach that age, they're okay getting dealt as long as they're getting dealt to a place that's going to take care of them.
Right. I mean, I think that's fair. And, I think that it would be nice if that, I don't know where Manny wants to go. I mean, to be honest, I think he's happy where he is. So if you're happy where you're at and you're getting paid, let it roll, because he's going to be out of that contract in a couple, 3 more years. So, and he'll be what, 37, 38 by that time?
I think he'll be older than that. I think his contract runs I think it runs till he's like 40.
Really? Okay. Well, then he'll be a broadcaster at that point.
Yeah.
Or a DH for somebody. One of the two. One last quick thing. Joey Votto and Clayton Kershaw have signed deals with NBC to be part of the Baseball Night in America, which will debut in March, which will be hosted by Mr. Costas. Bob Costas is returning to NBC to be the host of Baseball Night in America.
Yeah.
So, he won't be doing play-by-play, but he will be doing the hosting part. And anytime you get Bob talking baseball on TV, that's not a bad thing.
That's a plus. It's always a win.
And I'm happy. I mean, one of the funniest guys in baseball and one of the most entertaining fellas in baseball is Clayton Kershaw. And I'm really excited to see him get on a national stage. I think that's going to be fun. Clayton has got a great sense of humor. He's got this. I don't know. A lot of people like or don't like. One of my favorite people, and a guy who I've worked with for a long time, John Smoltz. I love John. I just love him. He's funny. He's self-deprecating. He knows the game. Clayton is just like John. He knows the game. He's funny. He makes fun of himself. He makes fun of the things that he's done in this past. He does it in a very smart way, and I think a lot of people are going to like Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, how many appearances on TV do you think it's going to take before they mention that him and Matthew Stafford were really good friends and went to the same high school together?
How many times?
How many appearances, how many shows do they make it through before that fun little tidbit pops up?
That might be, they're not going to make it through the press conference.
Yeah, they're probably going to open with that.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt was in the studio.
Yeah. They love bringing that up.
Yeah, they do. Hey, by the way, not for nothing, but Mike McDonald was a Bulldog.
Yeah. They made mention that it was Maria Taylor interviewing Mike McDonald,
right?
2 graduates from the University of Georgia last night.
it was funny. They did Michael McDonald, who with the Doobie Brothers. Uh, they did the promo was he started singing and he goes, "Well, wait a minute, no, that's you want the other Michael McDonald." So they went to break and came back and did the interview. But yeah, um, couple of Bulldogs there. So you got yourself a Bulldog who used to be a Ravens D coordinator, and now he's getting fitted for a ring. So good on him.
Yeah,
Well,
really impressive job in Seattle.
yeah, did a very good job, and he was the first head coach who was also who called the defensive coordinating plays in a Super Bowl yesterday.
Wow.
So
I did not know
that's
that.
that's pretty good. You know, he dialed up the defense while he was standing on the sidelines there. So
Yeah.
you know, good on him. I think that look, you and I talked about this numerous times, and that was that we thought Seattle was a team to beat for a number of reasons. They played a tremendous season this year, and they deserved it. They played it. They deserved it. And yeah, we it was nice. The story of Drake May was nice. The story of the return of the Patriots was a good story. And it's if I'm being honest, for the Patriots, this is one of those. If you're a Patriots fan, it's to be continued. Okay, don't rip the kid. Don't rip the team. Enjoy it because they were there, as we said, a hell of a lot earlier than anybody thought. And if you want to start going after people, think about, this is Drake May. He got absolutely, dissected by the media after the Super Bowl game. He got there. Lamar Jackson hasn't gotten there.
Yeah.
There's a kid in Buffalo who hadn't gotten there. There's a few guys who on the depth chart, on the guys who have either made the MVP or made the short list of the MVP who didn't get there. And oh, by the way, Dan Marino only made it to the Super Bowl once. Ironically, it happened to be out in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it was what it was. So just give the kid a break, okay? It wasn't all his fault, never is, whether the quarterback or whatever. Sometimes the other team is better. And you just have to tip your hat and say, you know what? Okay, cool. We'll catch you another side.
Yeah. And Seattle was unequivocally better. People will probably have a little bit of a jaded view of Drake May just based off this playoff run because it was an underwhelming playoff run. I know they made it to the Super Bowl, but for him, just in terms of his performances, I think everybody can probably sit back and go, he probably could have given us a little more. How much is that on injury? How much is that on offensive line? I think those things can play a factor. But he was still the MVP runner-up. That's still something that's true. I think the only thing that's going to give Patriot fans pause or concern is there is a startling trend that when you lose your first Super Bowl appearance, they have not made it back.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's always always exceptions to the rule.
And somebody's going to be the exception to that rule eventually.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. And look, be whatever you want to. Haters are going to hate whatever they want to do. Fine, but you can't. This is a kid who's in his second year, and he got to a Super Bowl. That speaks to the kind of character he is. And you could see after the game that he was upset that he lost. And I think that drive is going to help him. And I think the other thing that's going to help him is that Mike Vrabel is a hell of a coach and a hell of a motivator. And I do think that's he spent a lot of time yesterday. If you watched, he would, when they come off the field, he would literally walk to the bench and sit down for a second in front of Drake and just basically, pump him up and keep him going. just doing this whole thing. And if they could fix that offensive line and they can move a little bit around, I mean, they got plenty of time and plenty of effort to do it. They got the resources. They're a team that they're not afraid to spend money. So they'll get it worked. They'll get it fixed.
Yeah.
And so yeah. I mean, lay off the kid. Give him a chance. And on the other side, Sam Darnold didn't work. It wasn't as we said earlier, it wasn't a Super Bowl amazing performance. He wasn't Joe Montana. He wasn't Tom Brady, but he was good enough to get a Super Bowl ring, and he was good enough to win 28 games in 2 years.
Yep.
So, not for nothing, boys and girls. That's not a bad situation.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. Winning in and of itself is a skill. Like what Sam Darnold has done, and you can make comment to the rosters he's been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine and that's fair, but he's still won. So that is what's more impressive than anything, because 28 games in 2 years in regular season football is a lot.
Yeah, especially when you're somebody who 4 teams gave up on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So there you go, boys and girls. All right, for Matthew, I'm Jim. We put a bow in that. It's pretty much the season. We're starting tomorrow. We're going to start talking some baseball, and we're going to talk some, getting ready for a season. We're not going to stop talking football. Don't worry about that. We'll keep up in the college situation. We'll keep up on what's going on all around. You won't have to worry about that. We'll take care of it. But it's time to put the baseball glove on and time to talk baseball, because, as we said, tomorrow a number of teams are going to open camp, and we want to be ready for opening day. So get your ball glove out, oil it up, and get ready, because we're getting ready to play some baseball here. Okay? All right, guys. For Matt, I'm Jim. Take care, everybody.